On this episode of Sega Talk, we dive right back into the conspiracy world of the Conduit. This time without the and the number 2. We talk about the gameplay changes, additions, and dive deep into conspiracies that shape the game. All this and more on Sega Talk.
Sega Bits presents Sega Talk, a podcast talking all things Sega! With your hosts, George and Barry.
Look, it's a giant talking egg. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the master here. So what?
Hello and welcome to this episode of Sega Talk. I'm your host, George, and with me, like always, is Barry.
Hey, everybody, how's it going? And I brought my friend with me.
Hey, everybody, it's me, Ray the Squirrel. Can't wait to talk about today's game.
I'm pretty sure Ray the Squirrel does not sound anything like that.
Well,
he doesn't have a
so
voice.
I saw that there's that puppet who does like those terrible gaming videos, that blue puppet.
Right.
And I'm like, well, we got to get in on that. So it's going to be me and Ray from here on out, 2023. Barry, George, and Ray. What do you think?
I don't know if we need another person on this, especially.
All right, I'll set him down.
Yeah, let's make him a silent character, maybe for now, maybe.
Okay.
So, usually we don't talk about episodes like the Conduit 2. We probably would have covered a high voltage game. I think we probably would have covered one. I think there's some interesting bits in history of Sega during that time that we probably would have eventually covered. But this episode is picked by people like you, right? Is that a PBS?
Like me?
Yeah, like you. I'll let you do the Patreon plug, Barry. You're better at it.
Yeah. So this episode is a Patreon pick, which what that means is that if you support us on Patreon at a certain tier, you get to tell us what we cover. And this year we've done... we do like 2 episodes a month. We do an episode every other week. So I think we've done like probably over 24 episodes. And of those, I got to say probably 22 of them were Patreon picks. I can't really think of that many that we picked ourselves, which is really awesome. So we have a very dedicated squad of Patreon pickers. And I should do a shout out first to a new Patreon picker who just joined up today. It is Servant, a.k.a. Aaron. So I will DM all the details for how to pick episodes to Servant. So maybe we'll be seeing something from him in 2023. This episode, though, it's our last Patreon pick for the year. And it is from our good friend Bobbert. And Bobbert says, Conduit 2 is pretty much the same quality as the first game with slight upgrades and changes in gameplay, better locations, and standard controller options. The only big negatives I can think of are the boss battles not working very well, the new character Andromeda, who only is part of the story is to be awakened by Michael Ford. Move a couple feet to the front and stand in that spot for the rest of the game. Overall, if you like the first game, you'll probably like the second as well. The story is the biggest change compared to the first game. Instead of being serious and straightforward, it's more comedic and playful. And the voice actors changed too, with the role of Michael Ford, played by John St. John, the voice of Big the Cat in Sonic Adventure, and of course Duke Nukem, which I believe Duke Nukem Forever, around the same time. The most memorable part of the story is the end, and I'm sure George and Barry will talk about later in the video, but all I'm going to say is that I wish there was a third installment just to see how crazy it will get. Thank you, Segabits, for taking my odd request in all of 2022, especially the high-voltage software games, Conduit 1 and 2 and Tournament of Legends. Have a happy holiday, and looking forward to 2023. So yeah, if you are the picker, you get your memories read at the front, but we're going to be reading everyone else's memories at the back as long as they leave some before the episode ends recording, because honestly, not many people had memories of this game.
Are you surprised?
No, not at all. I don't have any memories of this game.
Yeah, you do, because this is the part where we talk about our memories of the game. So you have to have something, right?
Okay, I'll have something. Don't worry. You talk, and then I'll make something up.
So this, I remember. I didn't review this game, but I got sent a review copy. I'm pretty sure somebody else on staff did review the game for the website. I do remember, I don't know, so the ending for the game is really the most epic part of the game. Like, if the game's chapters, each chapter ended at such a high point that the end of the game ended, I think this game would have been more well received because of how bonkers the ending is. The first most notable thing I've noticed about this game is how much they changed everything about the first game. It's like they were, I don't know, I wouldn't say ashamed, but they definitely took the feedback seriously, and they thought that if they changed all these things that it would lead to a more successful sequel. But I think the problem with sequels is that mostly it's once you have one taste, it's kind of hard to come back and have seconds. And I think that was a part with this game, but also some of the stuff that was really bad of the first game wasn't always fixed in this. They just like added more stuff. It's like Sonic 06, but now you have 9 playable characters this time around. You know, it's like it's not really gonna fix it. But so what are you gonna say for your memories?
Well, I mean, as I said, I don't really have any memories of this game because I didn't play it, I didn't own it. But you did mention that Sega Bits did have a review, and you're right. It was reviewed in September 2011 by Knuckles, old staff writer Knuckles, and he wrote a very lengthy review. You can check it out on the site, and he ended up giving it a C-.
Seems about right.
So he was pretty down on it. But, you know, you bring up sequels, and yeah, it's like with movies, sequels aren't always great, but with video games, more often than not, the sequel outdoes the original, because with games, if the first game is good, then the second game, they really should learn from the downsides of the first game, or make adjustments, or make new additions. Like the classic is Sonic 2.
Right.
It's probably one of the best sequels in video game history, in my opinion. Like the way it elevated everything, the sales alone, Tails being playable, like even Mario wasn't able to outdo Sonic 2 in its Super Mario Bros. 2 sequel.
Right.
I mean, so Conduit 2, the first game, it had its ups and downs, but overall I thought it was a decent game. So, yeah, like how could they mess up here? Just take what works and improve it. But I get maybe that didn't happen. I'm looking forward to talking about it.
So, Conduit 2 is a 2011 first-person shooter video game exclusively for the Wii, developed by High Voltage Software, and is obviously the sequel of The Conduit. Unsurprisingly, development for the Conduit 2 started the day the Conduit shipped on June 2009, while the game wasn't announced until March 29th, 2010, so it was kept in secret. If you watch our Sega Talk number 91, we talked a lot about High Voltage's in-house engine. So that was the first Conduit episode, called Quantum 3. This game, a lot of the development of this is basically about the engine, sadly, which we already covered in the last episode. So definitely, if you care about engines, watch that one. But during the first game, the biggest excuse for it being rushed out the door was that half the team was dedicated to making the Quantum 3 engine, while the other half was focused on making the actual game. This time around, though, the team said they were fully prepared to just develop the game and work 100% on that, since the engine was already out. And the first big change, and you'll be seeing a lot of changes in this game. Like I said in the beginning, it felt like they really wanted to turn it around, so they changed almost, I think, a lot of things. So first big change was the name. The Conduit became just Conduit 2. The studio dropped the from the name. According to Joss Olson from High Voltage Software, the Conduit 2, the got a bit clunky, too much of a mouthful, and we always refer to it as Conduit 2 internally. It flows better and just kind of stuck. What is your opinion on dropping the from the title? And, I mean, would you care if the House of the Dead finally dropped the from the beginning?
Did it? I swear there's got to be a House of the Dead game that doesn't have the.
I wonder, too. I'm sure there is, right? Like, there has to be, right?
Right, there must be. But yeah, it's an odd thing that I've seen in movies and video games. Like, most famously, The Suicide Squad, which released and is a sequel, whereas here they dropped the. What's so odd, though, is most people are going to call this The Conduit 2, not just because they know the name of the first game, but I kind of disagree. I don't think it flows better. I don't think it rolls off the tongue better.
Because I think a lot of people still call it The Conduit too when they talk about it.
Right, because this is not like a situation with Halo, where Halo was the first game, and we're going to call it Halo. No one's calling it The Halo.
Right.
But if you're going to call the first game The Conduit, and then you're making a sequel called Conduit 2, people are going to say, oh, did you play The Conduit 2? They're not going to... I don't know. It's a minor thing, but it did catch my eye when I was making... Well, when I made the graphics for this game, because I was like, wait, it's episode 109, Conduit 2.
Yeah.
It's weird. I mean, the thing is, and I think the reason they do this is it's a good way to make a new title, but not make it that much different from the first. Plus, when you are doing categorizing or alphabetical listing, the is never used. You know what I mean? So if this is going to go on the shelf, it's still going to be in the C's. So, I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, it's just like changes that don't need to be changed. Like, also, we'll talk about it when we look at the box art for the game, because I was going to talk about the logo, but it's on the box art part of the notes. But High Voltage also took feedback really, really seriously from the first game. One of their biggest claim to fames online and got them really goodwill from fans was that they always went on forums. I think they were on the SEGA forums too, asking what was your issues with the first game, what do you want to see change, and of course gamers flocked to them and offered a bunch of suggestions. They did add stuff like split screen mode, sniper rifles, and a female characters due to fan demand, because I don't think that the first game even had a female character. Maybe, like, even prominently, like, I don't remember it. I can't even think of it. So while it's usually smart to listen to hardcore fans for a sequel, is there any fan base that you probably wouldn't want too much feedback from?
Yeah, the Sonic fan base.
Really? I agree, because they're all over the place.
And we came out of Sonic Frontiers. The game was well received by fans, I would say. But now social media is getting into this weird cycle where people are like nitpicking Ian Flynn. Well, here's the thing. I don't even think it's Ian Flynn's writing. Like, I honestly think SEGA came to him and said, hey, you need incidental stuff for Sonic to talk about throughout the stages. And he's like, okay, well, what's more interesting? Sonic just going, wow, look at that waterfall. Or Sonic going, hey, this waterfall reminds me of the ones at the Mystic Ruins. Like, there's more to that sort of dialogue than Sonic just saying, oh, the grass is really green, you know? But because of that, people online are now like, oh, there's too many references. And imagine if Sega's like, oh, boy, too many references? All right, the next Sonic game will have no references to past games. Like,
right,
and so I think that is the worst fan base, just because, like you said, like, there's a lot of opinions, but I think the problem is the loudest opinions are the wrong opinions.
Right.
Like, Sonic has too many friends. Well, yeah, but the whole fun of Sonic's friends are that they're different play styles.
Right.
You know, like I brought Ray here. He does cool, like, Mario gliding in Sonic Mania. Like, it's awesome. And
I think no one's ever gonna, like, come to a conclusion of what's the perfect amount of fan service and what's too much, because, like,
oh yeah,
at the same time people are mocking the game for feeling too empty, but it's like, wouldn't you just complain about the fan service? Like, wouldn't it be nice if the world had more fan service on it? I don't know, like, I don't know. It's weird because that one of my biggest issues is just that the world feels like it's disconnected from the other world, and the fact that Ian Flynn actually took time to write and make it feel like it's cohesive to Sonic's world is the complaint. And I'm like, wait, that's not a complaint. That's like, I think that's the best part. I think
right, and I mean, not that this is Sonic Frontiers Sega
Right.
talk, but like just to say that, like, but it works so well for me is because it's like he feels like he's out of place. This is a strange world. I think it's a much more compelling experience than Sonic Lost World, which when Sonic got to the Lost World, it looked exactly like his own world, complete with checkerboards and buzz bombers and so it's I think the best fans to listen to are the ones that you're like maybe paying to be testers, and
Right.
like focus groups. Like that's a lot more helpful than listening to social media. Now, I don't know what was going on back in the day in 2011. Like what sort of fans of the Conduit were High Voltage listening to? Who was out there? Because I don't remember many people talking about this game. Do you?
I remember it getting initial hype because it was a Wii first-person shooter, and I feel like for a while, any hardcore people that were hardcore into Nintendo, and they weren't the moms that were buying Wii Fit, wanted hardcore games on the Wii. Like they wanted FPS games. They wanted to be able to tell PS3 gamers, "Look what I got! I got our own Halo." So this game was pushed around, and I really think that the feedback probably came from Nintendo fans themselves. Because I feel like there was more Nintendo fans that played the Conduit than actual Sega fans that would play Sega games in the past, right? Like
Right.
the Dreamcast owner wasn't going to buy the Conduit. They were going to go buy the other Sonic game or whatever, right? So that's what I think. As far as fan bases not to listen to, I don't know. Probably every fan base, no. But hot take, though, probably the Virtual Fighter fan base because they're the most, like, I don't know, strictest, purest fan base of all time. And that franchise needs something else that is not pure. Like, people don't care about gameplay in mainstream. And if you want to make it a franchise, you're going to have to be open to new ideas and new innovations in gaming that
Right.
the
Yeah, I
originals
mean to
didn't
talk
have.
about
Right.
like to talk about that, like for me, if I were to see a new Virtua Fighter, one of the things I think would really be a must-have is to flesh the characters out more, give it more of a story, and maybe even go the Street Fighter route and give it like a little overworld hub, something like that, just to give it a little more to it. Because
Right.
as much as I love Virtua Fighter as being just a pure fighter, like you got to do that, but I'm certain that the hardcore Virtua Fighter fan base are like, no, it must just be here's the fighters, here's their styles, and it's a pure fighter. But it's like we've done that for 6 games or 5
Right.
games and all these revisions, like
Yeah.
And I hosted that Shenmue voice actor panel a few weeks ago, and when I brought up Jackie and Akira Bryant with the voice actors on stage, like there was so much backstory and like behind the scenes stories of them being like buddies and like like siblings off screen, and it's like that would really be awesome to shine through in the game itself more, to see them
Right.
interact, see cutscenes with Jackie and Sarah. They don't really interact in the game
No.
outside of fighting each other.
Right.
So
I agree, and I think it's something that they need to rethink is the content and make it a console. Make it console in their mind, right? Because like the idea of an arcade fighting game is like it's not a thing anymore. Like sadly, that's not how it is. They don't even own a management business. You could make it an arcade game, but you also have to think about the console gamer in mind.
yeah, maybe like a free-to-play console title, and then down the line you release a disc release with all the DLC, something like that.
Yeah, that could be interesting. We're like, don't listen to fans, and now we're here being fans and giving them advice. Don't
right.
listen to us. Actually, do whatever you want. Whatever you do, we'll play it, and then we'll talk about it.
Right.
So if you did have to ask a developer of any game in the world, it could be a game that came out 100 years ago, well, maybe 40 years ago, what would your request for that developer be to add to that game?
Oh boy. If a game developer asks you to one request their next game, and they would do it.
Right, they have to. It's a genius.
Well, I'd have to, because I'm a big Sonic fan, I would probably ask Sonic Team for their next game, if they're going with the open zone concept, to have the tornado be completely playable and you could fly it to anywhere in the world map. And I'd ask them to make a side game of being able to upgrade it and give it parts and maybe even new paint jobs and things. Like bring in concepts from Team Sonic Racing with the race cars, but allow you to apply it to the Tornado. I think that would be really cool.
And yeah, that's actually a pretty good idea. I'm surprised they never expanded on the Tornado, but not to get too much ahead because these questions are like not even the Conduit related. But obviously, if I had to, it'd be make classic Amy playable in a Sonic game, because it's weird that they have almost everyone, but Amy never gets to be playable in classic, like in a classic setting. So that'd be cool.
Good.
So
Good
back to the Conduit. While we will get into the story of the game in a bit, recapping the first game story for most people that never listened to the first episode and are not familiar with the franchise. But so let's talk about the story a little bit, just the writers behind it. So this time, High Voltage actually hired novelist named Matt Forbeck. Have you heard of him? And
No.
Jason Blair. They both wrote the scripts for Borderlands and Prey. But Jason didn't have a Wikipedia article, but Matt did. I guess he's really big into using other franchises, so he's known for doing the novelizations for the Minecraft dungeons, Halo New Blood, the D&D novels, the Warhammer's Blood Bowl books, which is like a football book. Literally, like in Warhammer, there's like orcs that play football, and they all die in the end of the game. So, and he wrote books based on that. And even Star Wars, he did the Rogue One Junior novel. I don't know if you heard of that one.
Yeah, I'm looking at that right now. That's interesting. I don't have that one. I don't have many of the Junior novels, but I'll have to check that out. That's interesting.
So I'll be honest. I as a person that played both games, I'm surprised they actually hired professional writers for this sequel. I'm surprised they needed it, to be honest, because it's so wacky and out there, and it's not that deep of a story. So what is your opinion on the idea of changing writers in a sequel with an already established story and cliffhanger in the end of a game? Like, it's kind of like, I don't know, A Force Awakens, I guess. We were just talking about Star Wars. The sequel was totally different staff and writers, right? Like, there's always
Right.
this weird, like, dynamic where the new people coming in want to change things. Like, what's your opinion on that?
I feel like, at least in this case, it seemed like High Voltage probably wasn't satisfied with the Conduit, and they were hoping Conduit 2 would be a soft reboot, and it would catch on, more people would play it, and they'd forget about the first one, possibly.
Right, I think so.
They were probably assembling what they saw as a more competent team of creatives behind the scenes that could like flesh it out into a bigger franchise. The problem is that like this is a third-party Wii game that is not going to continue on past the Wii. Like
Right.
if let's say there was a Conduit 3, it wouldn't have been on the Wii. It probably would have been on Xbox or PlayStation, and by that point, that's where the big boys are. And I don't think Conduit can compete with those types of games. So it's almost like, like PlayStation has more than enough Naughty Dog type games. Now imagine a Naughty Dog-like game that existed on a Nintendo platform in the past suddenly moves to PlayStation. Like,
Yeah.
is anyone going to play it? That's actually that Oceanhorn game. Remember that? It
Right.
looks like Breath of the Wild, but it was on smartphones. And then they ported it to Switch, and that always baffled me because I'm like, oh, cool, more people can play it, but Switch has Breath of the Wild. Like, why are you going to play a game that was trying to be Breath of the Wild on smartphones?
Right.
On
Yeah.
the Switch.
Yeah, it's super weird, and I agree. It was like a niche in time where they perfectly had a door open on the Wii where they're like, no one wants to make FPS games on Wii, right? Like, not dedicated Wii games, right? There was a few.
Right.
There was a few, but there wasn't like a franchise for them to be like, this is our Halo. And they thought maybe we could come in and do it, and it's just hard to, like, anytime when you are trying to aim to be a Halo killer, I've noticed in history, you are
Yeah.
not a Halo killer. You are just another game that people forget. There's like, I'm sure if we look in the past, there would be like 4 or 5 other games that used to be on magazine covers called Halo Killers, right? Like there was that Hive game.
Right.
There was that Killzone.
The Wii was really a cash grab for a lot of companies in a good way, because
Right.
it's like it was so different in terms of hardware and controls that you had to make games specific to the console, which was so rare because it's usually the case with portables. I mean, as you saw later in the Wii's lifespan, you would see games on Xbox and PlayStation, or you would see games on PSP and Wii. Like a lot of times, the PSP version was also the Wii version. So it's strange that the Wii kind of existed in that quasi-portable realm when the Switch now has that role.
Right.
And I think the Switch is now similar, maybe, but different, just in that because the hardware itself is held back, that there are developers making games that either can't run on the Switch, so they make it a Switch exclusive. And in that case, I think a Conduit could do well on the Switch, I guess, if it came back, but there's enough first-person shooters on the Switch. So
Right.
it's like, I don't know what they were trying to do with this. If you were really trying to turn this into a franchise, I don't know how much life they thought the Wii had. Maybe they were banking on Nintendo making a Wii 2 that was still very motion control heavy, which they kind of did with the Wii U. But
And they like totally abandoned now. Isn't that like, I mean, can we all agree now, right? Now that it's been 10 years, the Wii did not really change gaming like the way it thought it was going to change.
Okay, yeah, I agree there. It didn't change it the way it thought it would. It definitely did change gaming, but
Yes.
I remember when the Switch was debuted and people were making such a huge deal about, it's like ice cubes. Remember they were doing
Right.
that demo of ice cubes?
And they never used
Now
that.
I don't even think of the Joy-Cons, what they can do. I have them right here and I've never experienced anything amazing from them.
I agree.
I think, it's just kind of crazy that how they sold those things as like next gen haptic feedback shit, and they don't do anything. They feel like, I turn them off a lot of the times because most games, when they have rumble support, it feels like a mobile phone going off. It's the weakest rumble.
I do think that this is like part of advertising like Apple in a way, where they have like a feature where it's not the biggest feature in the world. It ain't going to change the world, but they'll put a whole ad around it. And it's cool
Right.
sounding on the ad that you'll hear your parents or someone going, "Did you hear about the island thing?" And you're like, "What?" And they're all into it. Or the idea of sharing your audio to other headbuds on the same device. If you have two, that's on the get.
Yeah.
That's on every phone. But
I
they
think
market
in
it
that
so
case,
good.
right. I think in that case, though, it's great because the device does so many things
Right.
that even if you're not going to use everything, like sometimes it's a huge problem solver because you're like on a flight and you're like, I gave my phone to my kid. Now my wife doesn't have her phone. Oh, wait, we can watch a movie together by tethering her headphones to mine. Like, it's not something you do all the time, but if you did it a handful of times during the, your ownership of the device, it's great. But yeah, with the Wii, it's like motion controls kind of came and went. They didn't even carry over with the Switch, really. They're there, but they're not utilized in any way compared to how they were even with the Wii U. I think the Wii U at least tried to continue that. Like, they made the Wiimote still necessary,
Right. Or
and relevant.
right. And then like Kinect went away, and then PlayStation Move is not a thing. They have the VR aspect of it, but like the idea of just playing Wii-like games on the PlayStation 5 is not a thing, right? So
Right, and even VR is kind of struggling, I think.
it's weird because they're still announcing stuff. I do think there's a future for VR. I just don't think it's anytime soon, at least mainstream soon. Like, you would have to, like, in my opinion, just be able to buy the headset and nothing else and have really good graphics and then not be big and ugly on your head.
Right.
Personally, I think that the future is actually AR, but this is not about this episode. So let's talk about Let's talk about the voice cast for this game. I just gave you a link to a page called Behind the Actors. You could see that there is not that many characters in this game. It's like literally a few, and even then it's like Michael Ford doesn't even look like Michael Ford from the other game. He's in the suit. He looks like some Chaos Marine, evil Superman weird thing.
Oh my god.
And so early into development, High Voltage confirmed that it wasn't going to have all the returning voice cast from the first games, but that the new ones have done a fantastic job making our characters come to life. In the end, even the main character, Agent Michael Ford, was replaced. I think the original was Mark Shepard, and they got John St. John, like we talked about. He's the guy that does the incredible voice work of Big the Cat, one of the best characters in Sonic franchise history, and a little character called Duke Nukem. I don't know. Is that a popular game? Duke Nukem?
Duke Nukem.
Also, Prometheus. The Prometheus is not the ball. It is the ball. The ball from the first game. They fired the original actor of Kevin Sorbo, aka 90s Hercules, and they got Sam O'Mari. I don't know how you say his name, but Kevin Sorbo is an idiot. I hate that guy. So I'm glad he got fired.
You want me to tell you something, George?
Did you meet him? Is he related to you? Please don't tell me he's related.
Yeah.
Okay. God. All right. I'm out. Podcast done. No, go on.
No, there's some relation there. I'll have to ask my grandma.
Oh my God! Fight him. I don't know, man. Something about him.
He's an idiot, though.
Yeah, he is an idiot. Okay, good. I'm glad we were in agreement on that. Also, oddly enough, Ben Savage of Boy Meets World fame did voices for enemies. I mean, it's kind of like a fall from grace, right? Going like being a leading man of your own show, even if it is on ABC, to voicing enemies in Conduit 2.
He came back for Girl Meets World, though.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he came back for a new series. So.
I mean, I would give him credit for that, but why are you like voicing like? How much money do you think there is in being bad guy or enemy voices in the video game? Like, I don't know.
I can't say.
Besides me despising Kevin Sorbo, do you think it's a good sign for the first game that the team not only replaced the writers but also the voice cast? And I heard,
like I said, I think it was a reboot, like a soft reboot. They were hoping to move the franchise in a different direction, but still have it be connected. Yeah.
So
I don't know.
Michael Ford, like his lines in this are literally Duke Nukem. Like he literally just phoned in Duke Nukem. He's like, "What's going on here?" The way that Duke Nukem talks, and I'm like, "No, why?" But yeah. So as we talked about the first Conduit game coverage, it supported the We Speak, a USB voice chat device that launched in 2008 by Nintendo. The device was short-lived with only 13 titles using it. According to High Voltage, Conduit 2 was ready to use the We Speak but opted out to support the PDP Headbanger headset, which quite honestly should have been the official headset from Nintendo and should have been packed into every console. I think that was a big mistake by Nintendo. According to High Voltage, it was due to the fact that the PDP Headbanger headset, which is a stupid name for it, had lower latency and better sound quality. And I will say that what was I going to say? Oh yeah, dumb name for the headset. But do you think that was a mistake for Nintendo not to like have a headset packed into every console since day one?
Yeah, that's kind of necessity, isn't it? I don't know. It's Xbox was doing that. There was a time when Xbox 360 was giving you everything. You'd open the console up, you get a headset, you'd get, even if it was a cheap one, at least they gave you something.
And it was almost 5 years before like this. So it's like
yeah. But now we're going backwards. Now you buy a PlayStation 5 and you'd be lucky to get like a power cord. Like
so I did
the way they're working now.
I did put a quote here, but it's basically him just saying that the reason they used it was because they had better sound quality, et cetera, et cetera. We already covered it. But apparently Nintendo did not let you, like, you had to do audio files or a driver or something to use the Wii Speak. But if you wanted to use a different headset, like the PDP Headbanger headset, you couldn't just support both. You had to support one. I'm like, what? What kind of development is this?
Right, and I think going back to our mention of like mobile phone and what they can offer, I think the big difference is that with like smartphones, when they put features in there, it really all is up to the user if they use them or not. Whereas with the Wii and game consoles, they'll put features in there, but it's up to the software developers to utilize them so consumers can use them or not. And, you know, I think good hardware development, I guess good hardware offers you features that you can apply to any game. Like, for example, custom soundtracks with Xbox 360, I think you could do that with any game. Right. I think developers had to go out of their way to block you from doing it. And, you know, that's kind of the equivalent of being able to listen to music while you play games on your iPhone.
Right.
Like, it just works. And you have to go out, again, you have to go out of your way to, like, block people from doing that. So what I guess is such a shame is that I feel like, and maybe it's not Nintendo specific, but I feel like they do it a lot, is they'll make these little logos for these little features, but then people are like, oh, how many games utilize that RAM expansion pack or Wii Speak? And it would be like, oh, let me check the wiki. Oh, 2. You know, like, as a kid, I thought the Nintendo 64 little expansion pack, I never owned an N64, but I thought that was amazing. I was like, oh, wow, what does this do? And now I watch videos of the history of N64, and I'm like, oh, it was because, like, they messed up development of, like, what, Donkey Kong or something? So they just gave it to everyone?
Right.
Like,
it was packed in because I think it used too much RAM, and they couldn't fix it. And instead of fixing it, they just gave you a RAM pack to add to the console.
But which did hardly anything else for other games. That's just the crazy thing.
I think the only other game that used it, but it was on purpose, was maybe Conker's Bad Fur Day might have used it, but you could play it without it. But it just ran at like really low frames per second. I wanted to say, I'm not sure, but
yeah. But at least with this Wii Speak, like it would have been really cool to see more games utilize it. Like, okay, the Dreamcast microphone, like how many games actually used it? Seaman, and that's about it. But there was a lot of, and by a lot I mean maybe a half dozen, which is a decent amount, of online Dreamcast games where you could do voice chat. And that's I think that's good utilization of it. I think people got enough use out of it.
Wow, apparently there might be more than we think for the Dreamcast. Let me count them. 1, 2, 3. Some of these are stupid. Like, do you really count the Dream Passport as one?
Yeah, because that was for internet speech. You could talk to people over the internet.
There was still more than, like, even if you don't count the Dream Passports, I think there was 13 titles, like actual game titles that supported it. Most of them were Japanese, like Mr. Driller. Like, I don't know what you would use it for, Mr. Driller, but it says it supports it. So
some of them you could record audio. For example, Death Crimson 2, you could record death sounds for enemies, which was kind of fun.
That's pretty cool, actually.
But like you look at this and it's like I think it's enough to warrant the device existing, especially the online chat. I remember playing Alien Front Online for a weekend with the microphone. It was so much fun. And, like, that paid for itself for me. I was like, oh, cool, good.
Especially in, like, the 2000s, like 2001, 2. That's not something that it was normal, obviously.
No.
Is there any third-party accessories on a Sega console that you prefer the third-party over the official?
Boy. That's tough. I'd say, you know what? I think there were some Rumble packs that were had a lot more strength to them.
Right.
On the Dreamcast, I had one that I loved. Unfortunately, I think it stopped working because it was what they did was it was a 4-in-1 memory card with a rumble pack. It was like having four VMUs and the rumble pack, the jump pack in one.
Right.
But I think they put so much shit inside of that I think the rumble pack stopped working after like 5 or 10 years. But hey, it worked when I needed it in the prime.
Right. That was a really good. Yeah. That was a really good one. That like 4 or 5-in-1 or whatever they used to call it.
Those were great. I mean, you didn't have a screen, but still. And you know what? There was one that was floating around online that had a screen. People are like, "Oh my gosh, it's the first third-party VMU," because no third party had a screen. And then someone who owned it goes, "Oh, it was plastic screen," like it was fake.
Oh, that yeah.
Imagine buying that. You're like, "Oh, cool! It's a 4-in-1 memory card with a screen." And then you get it home and it's just a plastic square.
I really wish that Sega would have made like a VMU, but big VMU, because some games just took way too many VMU slots, like or memory, whatever they used to call them, blocks. It was like I think the NFL 2K games took for career mode took all the memory cards, so you would need just a football memory card.
Phantasy Star Online ate up a lot. Shenmue ate up a lot. Jet Set Radio ate up a lot if you made graffiti.
Oh yeah.
But yeah.
So High Voltage also reused and scrapped stages from the first game that they were working on, but didn't make it out on time. This includes the oil rig stage and the downtown Washington D.C. stage, which a lot of people like. While the game was supposed to come out in early 2011, it was announced on January 2011 that the Conduit 2 was delayed until April 2011, and it did come out on April 19th, 2011. Before it came out, though, High Voltage showed off a tech demo of the Conduit 2 running on the 3DS on GDC 2011. The demo is based off the China level, and it also featured 3D effects and shifted the gameplay from first person to third person. And the only video I found online is this really, really short interview. So there's some footage you could click around it of the game running on the 3DS. But mostly it's an interview, so I'll go around looking through.
Hit the ground running, looking for a lot of opportunities.
But yeah, it's running on the 3DS. How good is it running?
That's cool.
We've always typically been a studio that likes to split our time about 50-50
that looks.
between
That actually doesn't look bad.
So,
right, for a 3DS game.
Now you know what? Right there, like I was saying, like where would this shift to? Where would you make a Conduit 3? I think if they shifted to 3DS and had it be like make the best you can 3D first-person shooter on the 3DS, that would have been awesome. And with the touch controls, missed opportunity. I think this is a franchise that should have shifted to 3DS.
Right, and it makes sense because I remember FPS games aren't the greatest on the 3D on the DS, but I do remember playing that Metroid Hunter game, and it was funny because I was going to school. And I would have to go to the McDonald's close by, and I would connect to their Wi-Fi and then just play the game online, even though I was super terrible at it. I found it to be fun, but I did feel when I was playing it that using the touchscreen to aim and all that stuff, I felt like I was fighting against myself. I can't aim where I want to aim. I have to get better, kind of. But I don't know. Does that make the game good? I don't know.
Do you have the video playing still?
Oh, yeah, no, I turned it off, sorry.
Oh, that at 1 minute 20 seconds, they're filming this girl playing, and
I know.
They go up to her face and she looks at.
Right, pretty sure she works at yeah.
She's like, "Don't film my face."
She's like, "What? Stop being a creep."
Yeah, exactly.
Joy from.
She's like, "I'm not a booth babe."
I didn't even have the video up when we were talking about it. But anyway, so I agree. I think 3DS would have been a good way to transition over to the next step. I think they needed to take. But I do wonder how well FPS games did on the 3DS or would have done on the 3DS because we didn't really have that many. Can you think of any FPS game on the 3DS that people talked about?
I can't off the top of my head.
Right.
There isn't like a go-to one where people are like, this is the ultimate. I can think of a lot of fighting games, but no.
So let's talk. Well, I thought I had the. Well, let me see where I put it at. I guess I didn't put it in here, but we could talk about it now before we get to the next story bit. Let's talk about the game cover. So the game got a brand new cover with a all new feel. As you can tell, they redesigned Michael Ford pretty much in a new armor suit with a bad gun, and there's flames on the bottom. I guess both had flames, right? Everything about these two covers screams different game, right? Like this other one has the Conduit one has this 90s aesthetic with these like big glasses. It looks kind of like one of those weird advertisements of cool kids that play Sega games. And then the Conduit logo. And then the Conduit logo on 2 is totally different. The color is way more brown and red. Less color in it. It's weird. What do you think?
For sure. They both look very generic.
Right.
I think Conduit 2 looks like it's trying to be Halo.
100%.
And it just looks so forgettable. Someone posted on Twitter like the best games of each decade, and it showed the 2010s, and they all looked the same. It looked brown and orange and gray, and it was just like, it looked like this.
Right.
And there's just nothing here that stands out, and I think you see that now, though, with like Fortnite, where they're really trying to break out of that look.
Right.
Like, there's no character in Fortnite that looks like this,
No,
you know? But,
no.
Yeah, I just feel like they needed to do something different visually in Conduit to really stand out, and this just looks so forgettable.
It's funny.
So forgettable.
It's funny that Fortnite is made by the people that literally started this trend, the guys that did Gears of War. I mean, Epic made Gears of War and they made Fortnite. So it's weird that they're the ones that are also like, hey, look, we're making a cartoon game. And it like took off, and now everyone's copying them again, right? Because Overwatch and all these games are just trying to be like this cutesy, cartoony art style that Fortnite's been trying to popularize.
Right, but back in the day, and by the day I mean like the 2000s, 2010s, like when you tried to break out of the usual FPS look, it was a gimmick. Like Fur Fighters, remember that? It was like a third-person shooter. Like the whole gimmick was that you were playing stuffed animals.
Right.
And, you know, like Conduit doesn't need to go that far, but I just, looking at this cover alone, like if that's your basis for your design of your game, like, man, it doesn't scream unique to me at all. Like, I look at this and nothing, it doesn't feel Sega, it doesn't even feel high voltage software, it just feels generic. It looks like a generic smartphone game, if I'm honest, like from China.
It 100% does. It really does. And I think you're onto something. I think that was the issue a lot of people had, is that they lifted ideas from a bunch of other games. So it'd be like the all-seeing eye could do codecs and read stuff. Oh, you mean like the visor in Metroid Prime? Or this character does this. Oh, you mean like this other thing from this other game? And it's like, it continues and continues, and it's one of those things where it's like, well, there is some originality, I'll give them that. How ridiculous some of the story bits are. It's like almost feels like it's a comedy sketch. But outside of that, I think it's pretty much trying to copy other games. And that's, I think, where it falls short a bit, in my opinion. So let's talk about the story. I'm going to pretend that everyone here does not know what the Conduit is and never heard of it. And I'm going to let the developer catch you up on the story for 2. And then you can tell me what you think about it, Barry.
Okay.
This is a quote from the developer. The Conduit is a tale of an ex-Secret Service agent by the name of Michael Ford. In the Conduit, he is drafted by a shadowy organization known as the Trust. There was a mysterious virus spreading through Washington, D.C., and Ford is tasked by their enigmatic leader, John Adams, which you find out later is the former president, John Adams. Wow, what a good code name. At taking down a terrorist known as Prometheus, who is linked to the virus attack. While trying to track down Prometheus, you come into contact with aliens known as the Drudge and the mysterious device called the All-Seeing Eye, ASE for short. Prometheus then hacks into your communication device and convinces you that John Adams is the real enemy and that the Drudge are created by the Trust. This revelation leads Ford on a quest through Washington, D.C. to track down the evil John Adams. Ford reaches Adams' underground bunker only to discover he's escaped through the conduit. Ford fights off waves of Drudge enemies and fearlessly jumps through the conduit. Flash forward to the Conduit 2. As Michael Ford steps from the conduit, players find themselves on an oil derrick in the middle of the ocean. They will then have to battle their way across the globe. Players will face an even greater alien threat as they chase down Adams. And of course, there are more conspiracies sprinkled in throughout the game. As someone outside of the Conduit world, what is your thoughts at the story?
I mean, I'm kind of remembering our Sega Talk 91 when we talked about the first game. But, yeah, when you tell me all this, none of that lines up with the box art we looked at at all. It does not look like that is Washington. That's a character named Michael Ford. So, yeah, I think the story is actually very interesting. I, at the beginning of the pandemic, was getting really into rewatching the X-Files, and that led me down a road to watching Millennium, which I really wanted to watch, but was only available on DVD. And so I went out and I bought all 3 seasons on DVD, which I'm glad I did because they're now like out of print and really hard to get. But if you ever watch Millennium, it's kind of very similar. There's like secret organizations. It's like X-Files, but for secret organizations and like, you know, like viruses and all these things. In fact, I think Millennium even had a COVID pandemic happen during, like, in the show. So having said all that, like, I feel like visually Conduit would be so much more intriguing as a game if you actually saw characters in like suits, you know, like agents and stuff. Like, go more Matrix-y with the outfits where they're people holding guns. Like, what's that one game from Sega? Confidential Mission. You know, like, yeah. When you show me Confidential Mission, I immediately get it. I go, oh, this is a light gun game, but James Bond. So if you were to show me Conduit and give me visuals that make me think, oh, it's a first-person shooter X-Files, like, I'd be in 100%. Like, even if it's a ripoff of X-Files. But I mean, I don't mean to shit on the game so much, but just like
it's
that
fine.
That story sounds so intriguing to me, but the visuals just don't match it.
Yeah,
and because of that, like, you can tell me the story, but I'm looking at it, I'm like, this looks like a Halo ripoff. Right,
I have to agree, and I think the name is also very generic. I think they thought the way Halo thought, like, Halo has nothing to do with what the actual game is. Like, when you think of the word Halo, before the game came out, you didn't think of a green man shooting people in space. You thought of an angel, right? The halo around an angel. The problem is that game was really good and it defined a generation of games, and this one did not.
Right. But I will say, Halo, I know very little about Halo. I'm someone who only played the first game and only played a portion of it. But I remember the lead up to Halo, people, we would think angels, but then when they started showing us the art, we go, oh, there's a ring, like, there's this ring.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like a halo, but it takes place on it. So just the idea of standing on a planet that's the shape of a ring and you can see the planet winding up this way and winding up that way with the edges was so
epic,
intriguing and exciting. And here, Conduit, what is Conduit?
To me, if you told me there's a game called The Conduit, I would think it's like a puzzle game to do with electricity, where you plug things in.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I would think. If it was
or
on
a
the Wii.
steampunk game or
Maybe,
something.
yeah.
But honestly, if you were to call the game All-Seeing Eye or something, I think that would be a lot more intriguing because people know what the All-Seeing Eye is. It's that pyramid with the eye on it, and that alone is a lot of conspiracy theories, draw on that. So I think if you just took something generic that a lot of, like the All-Seeing Eye or something, I think that would, or The Trust.
Right.
The Trust, that's a good name for a game, a first-person shooter with Washington, D.C., like, conspiracies.
Right.
Because The Trust, it would be like, trust in your government, but it could also be like a trust, like a group.
Right.
So...
Both are better names.
Missed opportunities. Lots of missed opportunities.
So, I think we talked about the first episode of the Conduit, episode number 91, how weird it was that the game played around with these conspiracy theories, especially back then in the 2011s. Conspiracies were found on websites, random websites in the middle of nowhere. Usually, it wasn't politicized as they are today. People weren't using them in mainstream media to attack other people. Mm-hmm. In this game, I think they did a good job kind of making you feel like you were finding these conspiracies because they used the scannable items. Like I said, Metroid Prime does the same thing, but when you're scanning an item, it kind of feels the same way when you went to these websites and you found these weird, like, oh, did you hear this weird conspiracy about pigeons or whatever? They're not real. They charge on the telephone wires. And they kind of did it the same way, so I thought that was pretty neat. That when I played it, but some of the backstories uses I can't even say this, Sumerian religion and big on
you said it, yeah.
Reptilian conspiracies. Barry, what do you know about reptilian conspiracies?
Well, not. I just know that there's this like notion that there are people who are like half lizard or all lizard, and they're hiding in plain sight. And I know a lot of people draw on bad old video that was digitized, like the early days of digitized video glitching, and people claim that was like reptilians appearing on screen just because like videos would freeze up and cause like
the glitching
textures
right
on skin. And the YouTube channel Captain Disillusion does great videos about like explaining how videos glitch and why people aren't reptilians. But I do think it's interesting. I've actually I can't remember what I was listening to, but there was a podcast I was listening to recently. It might have been like NPR or New York Times or something, where they were talking about conspiracy theories and how, back in the 90s and 2000s, there was a really big focus on conspiracy theories within our media, from The Matrix to The X-Files. Mm-hmm. But it was all done in kind of a fun way. It was kind of like everyone's aware of conspiracies. They know they exist, but they know that they're not real. Like it's kind of fun. It's kind of like going to a haunted house and there's not a ghost there, but it's fun to think there is.
Oh, yeah.
But as time went on, to our present day, people would listen to these conspiracies, but then they'd go down rabbit holes and they'd join communities, and then they would be fed much more dangerous conspiracy theories that would involve real people being targeted for things they did not do. But people would draw all these like lines and say, okay, well, this guy is keeping people prisoner in his basement because he's a sex trafficker. Right. And I think you're not going to see these types of games now because 100. As you mentioned, like it's changed so much. Which it's both a shame, but it's also to be expected. Like looking back at what we were talking about in the 2000s and 2010s, like it only makes sense that it would lead us to people like thinking mass shootings aren't real. You know, like not to get super real here, but like this is a first-person shooter,
right?
That largely draws on silly conspiracies, but in the end, you're shooting stuff in the game. Right. So it's like, man,
it would be a little too hot for today now, especially the way that conspiracy theories have moved. So the reptilian thing, you were right. It's about people in power that, it's usually people in power. People say they're our overlord or whatever. And to me, I'd rather them think this than some other more like, at least a reptilian race is not real. And they're like, instead of saying, oh, it's because they're this religion or this other thing that's real, it's like, at least
Right.
you're just making a fantasy. Okay, get out of here. I don't really mind the reptilian thing. It's whatever. I mean, I play Warhammer. I play as the reptilians, lizardmen, so maybe I'm a little biased here, but I do think that the cold-blooded creatures should rise up and overthrow us warm-blooded mammals. Anyway, so other
Agreed.
conspiracies that the game drawed on was the disappearance of Percy Fawcett. Let me see if I can get the Wikipedia article out. So basically, he was a British geographer, artillery officer, cartographer, archaeologist, and explorer of South America. Fawcett disappeared in 1925 along with his eldest son, Jack, and one of Jack's friends during the expedition to find Z, his name for an ancient lost city which he and others believed existed in the jungles of Brazil. So I put a little bit of notes on the conspiracy here. So Fawcett's signet ring was found in a pawn shop in 1979. The Observer did a report piece about this in 2004. After studying Fawcett's letters, they believed that he never meant to return from the South American trip and was trying to like start a commune there, which I kind of believe, to be honest with you. Like, if you explore so much there and love the culture and the ideas and lifestyles, I mean, why wouldn't you just tell your family, all right, me and my son, we're going to go to this jungle and we'll find a city, we'll be back, and then you never come back ever again, right? Like, people leave
Right.
their families for random reasons in real life, and they think they disappeared, and then they show up one day, hey, I had another family. I totally forgot.
That's like in Kong Skull Island with John C. Reilly's character.
Right. So, considering that what with mapping, satellite, and other technology that has covered most of the seeable Earth, do you think there is some lost city of Z?
I probably think he was lying, and he was trying to go and join a commune, and he created that lie. Probably it. It's probably that simple.
I agree. And this one I can't even say, so I had to look up how to pronounce it. Tunguski event, the Tunguski event. I've never heard of this thing before we did this episode. So it's basically a 12 megaton explosion that occurred near Russia, a river in Russia. I'm not even going to say the name of the river because it's ridiculous. In the morning of June 30th, 1908, the explosion is generally attributed to a meteor airburst, and I guess a stony asteroid that about 160 to 200 feet fell from the sky, destroyed everything. There's a picture here from all the way back then, and like all these trees are all laying down flat. And if you look down, there's even more. People were saying it's bigger than like a bunch of atom bombs or whatever. So this is part of I don't know what the conspiracy behind this is, to be honest with you. I did Google, like, what is the conspiracy, but now Google has censored conspiracy theories because of obvious new people that have weaponized them, sadly. But I did read a little bit about, they think that the conspiracy theory is that Nikola Tesla did this event with one of his death beams that he was working on, or his lasers or whatever, his electronic lasers. And the government covered it up, saying it was actually a meteoroid or something. So people don't believe it. Do you think it was a meteoroid, or was it Tesla the whole time?
It's Tesla.
I agree.
He's up to no good.
I know. That's why I 100% agree. And I agree. Tesla. That's why I'll never buy a Tesla car, because of what happened back in 1908. You know what? I didn't know that Elon Musk was that old. I mean, he looks pretty good.
You know, Tesla actually died in New York City.
Right.
And he died at the location where a lot of the buses drop you off, at the TikTok Diner, which was actually used as a location. I don't know if they actually filmed it, but in Watchmen.
The diner in
the Watchmen movie, there's a TikTok diner that was inspired by a real TikTok diner in New York. But Nikola Tesla died in the building like right there. So if you ever are in New York and you're like using the buses, yeah. But there's something there then, right? Like Watchmen, TikTok, Diner. I don't know. Conspiracy.
Oh, you should be writing conspiracy.
But that's what people do. When there's a conspiracy, they go, well, I don't know, though. You know, it's like, well, if you don't know, then you don't know.
I don't know. Do your own research, dude. I don't know anything, man. What do I know?
I watched enough YouTube videos until someone said something I agreed with, so...
The next one...
That's my research.
The next one is a book called Sun Gods in Exile, a book by David Gaiman, who was published in 1978 under a fake name because he didn't want to use his real name. Allegedly from notes of Carl Robbins Evans, who was said to be a professor at Oxford University. So this guy just found these notes, man. Nobody even knows who this guy is. The book tells of a 1947 expedition to Tibet in which the scientists visited a Bayan Har Mountains. Robin Evans claims that the Dropa tribe was of I can't even say this word. How do you say this word?
Extraterrestrial.
Extraterrestrial. It's like a mouthful. Alien origin and had crashed on Earth. The book featured photographs of a tribe and alleged Dropa stones. Is that how you would pronounce that? Dropa stones?
Dropa.
Yeah. Which contain messages from aliens. Although researchers were unable to locate Carl Robin Evans, the Oxford person that wrote these letters. Wow. The stones have actually been used a lot in UFO subculture. I don't know if there's any X-Files episodes about it, but I have seen a lot about it.
Oh, yeah.
I believe it. Okay. So, I guess the last question. Do you believe that ancient alien races and technologies are hiding among us? You want to believe, don't you?
Yes.
I do.
I want to believe. No, I think of all the conspiracy theories out there, I think that's the most believable. Just because scientifically it's not disproven. Because to say that no alien race exists, to say that no life exists outside of our planet is ridiculous and not true. So to say that no intelligent life exists anywhere else in the universe, impossible. Right. You know, like statistically, it has to. The question is, did they find a way to travel like interdimensionally or through space and like come to Earth? Who knows? You know, like I think that's one of those rare things that you can ask a scientist and they would say, well, statistically it's possible, so we can't say no. Now, if you were to say, hey, is there a ghost here? Like, a scientist will say no. You know,
right.
A little bit of a difference.
I would agree. I was going to go through all the gameplay changes, but we are actually running late on this episode. So instead, we will look at the ending for the game, and then we can laugh about it, because it's hopefully this shows the ending. So it's a 1 minute and 18 minute clip that I sent you. Mm-hmm. Just the in cinematics. I'm hoping this has everything that I wanted to show. I'm already playing it, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'm watching it.
Way more higher quality here, the cutscenes.
Yeah, this definitely looks like a guy talking to a former president.
It could have been anyone, but it was you.
Huh. Looks like Sonic Adventure 2 now.
It is. Actually, Sonic comes out. That's the ending.
Is this the ending to Sonic Frontiers?
Yes. The true ending this fall.
Oh my god.
So epic.
It does look kind of cool.
This is the best part of the game, by the way, so... I want to edit it for Mario to come out. Bruh.
It's a shame they didn't call the game series Portal.
Literally, I don't know if you caught up to it yet, where they showed the reveal.
Yeah.
It's Abraham Lincoln and George Washington show up in, like, spacesuits. And they're like, we're here to help, dude. It just, to me,
Wow.
this whole game is like a Republicans like wet dream. Like, oh, now we're gonna hang out with conspiracy theories. We're fighting aliens. The government's against me. The founding fathers are coming. We're all gunned up. We have all our guns. We're ready to go. And I'm like, isn't High Voltage Studio like a Swedish studio? Like, it doesn't make any. How do you know America so well? Like,
they're experts, it seems.
so I will say that the game did go in and they did fix a lot of stuff in the original game. They actually let you now have objects that you could drop, like tables and whatever, stuff like that. They had armor pieces for enemies, so you could shoot off armor to get weak spots. So they thought about the variety, which is a good thing. They also added a sprint buttons, which every game should have, and some stages had vehicles with actual weapons to use. You could have loadout and things like that. The enemy AI was actually more lifelike, and this part is actually the best part, I think, is what they did with the enemies.
Yeah.
So they have convos, whatever, before that you come and fight them, so to make them feel more lifelike. They also move items so they can take cover. They also change the behavior depending on the weapons they're holding. And the weapons they hold are randomized. So if they're holding a shotgun, they're going to try to come up to you and shoot you up close. If they have a rifle, they'll stay behind and cover to get you. I thought that was interesting. Their armor is also randomized, so it's never the same twice.
Oh, nice.
And they also had 23 enemy types as opposed to 14 in the first game. So they did add a lot more things to the game. And that's one thing that I think more games should take from this game is the idea of maybe making enemies fight a certain way depending on their, maybe like a move set or something. Because I think like Sonic, I don't know, the new Sonic game, for example, if the enemies had like 4 or 5 different types of pattern, it would have made it feel a little different. Instead of, so like something like, this one's easier because it's weapons, right? It's like a shotgun, you want to be close, right? So it makes sense. Outside of that, the game actually has more levels than anything else. They really took fan feedback on the games feeling the same in the first game. So now this time you go to like the Amazon, China, England, and it's like 6 to 8 hours compared to 4 to 6 hours from the original game. Still short for a first-person shooter, I would say, but it's a lot more like digestible than 4 hours, I would say. Like 4 hours is really, really low. Yeah, boss battles kind of suck, but they did add boss battles, and they also had a multiplayer mode that got hacked. I don't know, do you play multiplayer modes in, I mean, we talked about this last time, we don't really play multiplayer modes, right, on Wii? Online?
I've never played a multiplayer game on Wii.
Yeah, and that's the weird...
It's too annoying with the friend codes.
Right.
Remember in the forums, the old Sega Bits forums, we would put our friend codes in like
God.
a topic?
Does anybody even share their Switch friend codes? Like, I'm sure some people on Twitter, but like, I don't even want to play online on that thing.
I go out of my way to avoid multiplayer games on PlayStation and Nintendo platforms just because it's so easy on Xbox.
Right.
Because it's included in their Game Pass.
Right.
Like, I don't have to think about it. I actually have been rebuying a lot of multiplayer games I had on PS4 on Xbox now, like Ghostbusters and Team Sonic Racing. I'm like, if I want to play these, I can't. It sucks.
Right. I don't play anything online. I think some people I added for Animal Crossing, but I literally played that game for a month and stopped playing it. So they did have a rival system in here. So basically, if you were in the lobby, you'd be able to add them on your friends list, but they're not your friends, they're your rivals. I do wonder if they did that because they're like, no Nintendo, I swear, it's not the same. But yeah, lots of gameplay fixes. But here's the issue, in my opinion. It really did feel like they listened to fan feedback where they're like, we want more guns, we want more of this, but they just kept on adding things, not thinking maybe we should fix the gameplay design and design better levels and make the shooting feel better, design like more cinematic moments. Instead, they're just like, we'll add a bunch of stuff and that will make it better, but I guess not. Because, so advertising the game, Sega and High Voltage ran a competition created with Nintendo that offered fans a chance to have their picture of their face on a wanted poster in Conduit 2. Entries would be asked to write at least a 25-word letter detailing what they wanted in the sequel. Again, fan feedback, right? That's kind of like their whole motto and how they advertised it with the community. So, outside of this, we got a launch trailer for the game to see, so we could watch that now. I'll press play. I'll skip to the after the Sega logos, and then we'll press play. Top 6 games.
Wow.
Must have been a slow year. Graphics look good for a Wii game, I would say.
Yeah, but visually it just
needs better art style. Look how buff he is.
Well, like with the name Conduit, I get they were trying to go for like portals, almost.
He's got an all-new suit, all-new look. I know. Booba. It's like the most generic female 90s character or like 2000s character, but this right here was diversity back then. Like that girl character's design. Oh my god, she's like dying. Oh.
He's been trying to kill me, I've been trying to kill him. It's sort of a thing we have. Best of luck to you and your little round friend.
John Adams.
I love the comments.
Okay. Did that make you want to buy it?
Well, I didn't buy it, so it didn't work.
It didn't work. All right. Even though the game...
The comments below are funny, though.
Right.
This person, I just wanted to say, this person says, "I'm getting this with my next paycheck. It seems like they really put a lot of effort into this one, and the multiplayer looks nice. I really think High Voltage Software is working their butts off to make something good, and I'm supporting them. But really, High Voltage Software releasing the same day as Portal 2, Mortal Kombat, and SOCOM?
Man, this is a long time ago. Not only that, like I said, Nintendo fans were the ones really supporting it, as you can see by the icon here. But yeah, pretty funny. Even though the game went in and fixed a lot of the issues presented in the first game, the game actually got a worse critical score than the first game. The Conduit had a 69% Metacritic, nice, while the sequel holds a 64%, not nice. Games Radar says, sadly, aside from the sharp online Wii experience, Conduit 2 barely impresses, relying too much on generic drudgery and sad attempts to capture of magic of more popular titles. Worse yet, the storyline and characters seem aimless and forgettable. And I think that is the issue, right? You don't have memorable characters, you don't have a memorable storyline. The only thing you have is that you used conspiracy theories around your narrative, but in a not creative way. Like, literally just George Washington and what's his name in spacesuits walking in the end. That was your hook for the next game. That's it. At least when you play like Assassin's Creed, like when they use like history, they have a fun twist on it that actually changes the world and your idea of this history. And this one, I'm like, I don't think of George Washington as coming in a spacesuit, dude. I just can't see it. I don't see John Adams being a villain. I don't know. It's weird. What do you think? Do you think the Founding Fathers would be villains if they came back?
I mean, I guess just turn it into a fighting game where you play as all the presidents.
That would have been actually cooler. Tournament of American Legends. Anyway. Well, the game had more. It also had new issues arising. Apparently, one of the things I read was the game kept freezing Wii consoles. And it seemed that... and also, apparently, High Voltage kind of knew this game was not the greatest when they were promoting it, because literally a month after the game came out, or a few months after it came out, Kevin Scheller from High Voltage came out and said that the issues in development was the lack of focus on the game and the team making good tech demos instead of actually working on the game. So they were like, that's why you see all these weird tech demos they always do, like The Grudge, or, oh, did you know that the Conduit 2 ran on the 3DS? Yeah, aren't you supposed to be working on the game for the Wii? Why are you working on tech demos on the 3DS? Like, they were always looking to pitch a new idea to potential publishers, it seemed like. And I think that's why they don't have big publishing deals anymore like they did back then with Sega, because I feel like their goodwill ran out, and now they're just kind of like a weird, I don't know, like they're doing Fortnite storylines, like doing Fortnite stuff. I mean, they have work, but it's not, I'm launching my own IP kind of exciting, you know what I mean?
They should do a Conduit event in Fortnite and add, because if we're getting Mr. Beast as a playable character, why aren't we getting
Mr. Beast? You talking about the
Abraham
YouTuber?
Lincoln in a spacesuit? Yeah, he's going to be in Fortnite.
I can't wait to collect them. I already got Travis Scott and my Hadouken and my Dragon Ball Z Kamehameha.
Wow. Oh, hey, High Voltage Software's in Hoffman Estates. They're near me. That's like right near me.
Go in. Talk to them about conspiracy theories.
I should. They're still around?
High Voltage?
Huh.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Like I said,
I'll go drive by their headquarters.
Film yourself talking about conspiracy theories. Maybe we could do a podcast with them doing the conspiracy theories. We'll top 10 conspiracy theories of all time.
They're hiring right now. Not for anything I do, but
for people that see they're hiring, that's a good sign, especially in this economy. So,
wow.
Anything else you want to say about Conduit 2, not the Conduit 2?
I sounded really down on it throughout the episode, but I would say it's one of their better efforts. I think it was more exciting than the fighting game that they put out. So yeah, I mean, not all of the games we talk about can be winners, but yeah, if you want this one, it's going to cost you a little bit more. I checked, and it's going between $40 and $60 on eBay, whereas the first game's only like $10 to $15. So I don't know. Maybe they made fewer. Maybe they made fewer episodes or fewer games or something. But yeah, now I'm thinking of just driving over to their
Studio?
They're 40 minutes away from me. Yeah.
I will say this.
I was actually up there. I was up there 2 days ago. I was near there.
If you do go over there, I mean, you should be in contact with them to get that 3DS demo out there, like actual good footage of it, because literally there is nothing out there outside of that Destructoid interview, and it's really bad footage, and it's like 2 minutes and like 10 seconds, like 30 seconds is the interview of their faces, and then 10 seconds of that girl. So that's like half the video is just like people instead of the actual game. So yeah.
Yeah.
Outside of that, the first game did get a port to Android phones. This one did not get a mobile port. So this is a Wii exclusive forever, most likely, unless they randomly port it to PC, which I don't think is going to happen. So I think this closes the chapter on the Conduit saga. Do we have any memories to read in the end?
No one has any memories, unfortunately.
Oh.
But
tell them about the next game we're going to cover, and hopefully more memories.
Well, the next game, I won't reveal it because you shouldn't open your Christmas presents early. But it will be a weird one. It'll be a Christmas themed one. And I will say, this isn't the end of High Voltage Software. Someone could tell us to cover Captain America Super Soldier, which they
did the Wii version though. I mean, we're going to be talking about the PS3 most likely. Sorry, but yeah, I guess we'll mention
unless someone picks the Wii one specifically.
Don't do it.
Yeah, this is unreal. I had no idea they were so close. Like, I could visit them.
You could have lunch with them.
It's amazing. and tell them not to listen to this episode.
Please don't.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to the next one. It's going to drop publicly on Christmas, but you get it a week early. And also, there's going to be a Fastest Food Alive video dropping every day until Christmas, starting the 14th.
Whoa.
So you can look forward to that on YouTube. So yeah, lots of fun stuff coming up.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode of Sega Talk. Bye.
Bye. They put their phone number on here too. I could call them.